Hi, my name is Mike, and in this video we're going to be performing some basic maintenance tasks on our first generation Chevy Colorado. Instructions shown in this video should be applicable to all first generation Chevy Colorados as well as GMC Canyon, Hummer H3, and the Isuzu variant vehicles. I have all my parts laid out here on the bed, and I'm going to go through these here in a minute, and then we'll move around to the front of the vehicle where I'll show how to replace all of these parts. Pretty basic stuff today. We're going to be doing the air filter, which is an AC Delco A1624C. We're going to be doing a siphon change of the brake fluid, and the reason I'm doing this, it's obviously not as good as a full brake system flush, but what I like to do is use a turkey baster to siphon the fluid out of the top of the brake master cylinder. And the reason I do that is because brake fluid is hygroscopic, which means it absorbs water over time. So, you know, again, not as good as a full brake system flush, but you do this periodically. I believe it helps remove water from the brake system. We're going to be doing a quick clean of the throttle body, the mass airflow sensor. We're going to be replacing the PCV hose underneath the resonator box. The reason I'm doing this is because this hose tends to crack over time and dry rot, and my vehicle has 212,000 miles on it. I know the last time I looked at it, it was starting to crack a bit, so I just wanted to go ahead and get this replaced. Part number for that is AC Delco 151-23628. We're going to be replacing this is called a VVT solenoid. Some forms call it an exhaust gas solenoid. There's a couple different names for it. It may look familiar to you if you spent much time on the Colorado Fans or 355 Nation website. This is the part that has the small screens inside of it, and over time these can fall loose and fall into your oil pan. Now mine hasn't failed. I haven't seen any symptoms of it starting to fail, but again, at 212,000 miles, I just wanted to go ahead and get a new one and get it in there. This is a part number. It's a GM 12615-873. I got all these parts from Amazon. Reason for that is it's because of the coronavirus pandemic. It's pretty hard to find parts locally, so I've been taking to ordering things online, from Rock Auto if I can, or Amazon, or whatnot, online places. Now the tools you're going to need to do this: to remove the mass airflow sensor, you need a screwdriver with a Torx bit, and I just have a few different sizes here. You're going to need probably a couple flathead screwdrivers to remove some of the hose clamps. 10mm socket wrench. I'll show why we need that here in a little bit. We're also going to be tightening the grounding nuts inside of the engine compartment, which is a common problem with these trucks. If those ground nuts come loose, it can cause a lot of electrical problems with the vehicle, and I'll show where those two grounding blocks are. We'll also need a socket wrench, a few extensions, and an 10mm socket. I also have out here some compressed air. There's not very much in here, but this is just to help me kind of blow out the air box a little bit when I'm changing the air filter. And then up here we have our turkey baster, and then a pan to put the old brake fluid in as I'm siphoning it out. This is also something that I do with power steering. It's pretty hard to do a full flush on that, but for the power steering I'll hook a small electric pump up to the power steering fluid reservoir, pump all the old fluid out, dump a new bottle in. Again, it's not as good as a full flush, but I feel like this is a periodic maintenance thing that only takes a few minutes, just like with the the brake master cylinder. Pull the old fluid out, put some new fluid in. Basic maintenance. So I'll pause the video periodically. Hopefully it won't be too boring or too much of me turning wrenches, but I will try to turn it on again each time I get to a key point in the process. So I'm going to go ahead and pause it now. We'll move around to the front of the truck and we'll get started with some of these parts. Alright, over here at the front of the truck, I wanted to talk first about the two grounding blocks. Now again, this is something that's a pretty common problem with these trucks, is that over time these screws work their way loose, and it can cause a lot of, we'll just say electrical gremlins in the vehicle. Let's see if I can pan the camera over to where they are. They're going to be hard to see a little bit, but let's see. I'll go ahead and put the wrench on the first one. Is right down here, and the second one is over on the driver's side, right down here. So I have the wrench on the top of it right now. And this is something that you always just want to, whenever you're working under the hood, I usually recommend just put a wrench on those, make sure they're tight. If those can work their way loose, it'll cause a lot of various electrical problems with the vehicle. You'll see it on the forum. Somebody says, oh, well, I have electrical problems, such and such and such and such, and the first thing somebody will say is, well, did you check that those are tight? So always, whenever you're under the hood, just check those, make sure they're tight. Something else I'll see is, people will take them out, take the screw out, put a star washer on there just to give it a little more bite. Other people will actually disconnect the wires and actually put, clamps on there so that they're, so that they can secure them more tightly to the body of the vehicle, and just to give you a little bit better ground. The air filter on the Colorado is over here on the passenger side underneath this big box. Should be pretty obvious where it's located. It's removed by releasing 3 tension clamps around the sides, and then it kind of hinges back, and then you can actually just pull that off. So now you can see mine under here, and it's actually not too bad. I wanted to go ahead and check it and just go ahead and replace it while I was doing some of this other stuff. It doesn't look too bad here. But we'll go ahead and pull that out, and you can see the old one. It does have a little bit of, it is getting a little dirty on there. So one thing I'll point out is that it uses these kind of notch mechanisms to line it up, and that lines up with both the bottom and the top of the air filter housing. Let's go ahead. Get our new one. I noticed this new one is kind of a yellowish color. Usually I use Fram. I'm using AC Delco this time. I don't know how well this will show up in the video, but you can see it's got kind of a yellowish color. And it still has the alignment notches at the top and the bottom. So before I put that new one in, I just wanted to get my compressed air. Try to blow this out a little bit. I don't know how well that's showing up in the video, but you can see a lot of like seeds and stems and pollen and stuff that collects inside this air box, and I'm out of compressed air. Well, I should have gotten more, but better than it was. We're going to take our new filter, line it up with the hole, and you just got to kind of push that on there so that it lines up with the notches on the bottom. And when we put the cover back on, so that it lines up with the notches on the top and the bottom. Clip your 3 clamps. And done. That's the air filter. Piece of cake. Next, we're going to be cleaning the mass airflow sensor. That's over here on the air intake just after the air filter. And for that is what you'll need the screwdriver with the Torx bits for. So to get to the mass airflow sensor, first you release this electrical connector on the top of it. And then there is 2 Torx screws. Put them over there in our magnet tray. And you want to be kind of careful with this, just to make sure that you don't bang it on anything while you're taking it out. So I'll show it to you over here. So this is an electrical sensor, measures the airflow coming into the engine or into the intake. and I've never really had one go bad on this vehicle. I do like to periodically take it out and clean it, and mine does still look fairly clean on the inside. So to clean it, you want to make sure that you use mass airflow sensor cleaner. Don't spray it with brake cleaner or anything like that. I think that could damage the sensor inside of it. But it's basically just a spray that you saw a minute ago, the mass airflow sensor cleaner. I'm going to take it off camera here for a second. I'm just going to, well, we can hold it over. Just kind of give it a few sprays. Make sure that it's clean all on the inside, especially on that little passage where the sensor wire is located. Once you feel like it's clean, I just kind of give it a second to, this spray dries very, very quickly. So you can see I just sprayed it down, but it's already mostly dry. Installation is reverse of removal. Kind of just look and make sure there's nothing, no leaves or anything about to fall in there. Set it back down in its hole. Get your 2 Torx screws and your Torx screwdriver. I suppose you could replace these with slotted or standard Phillips head screws if you wanted to. I just keep using these because I haven't dropped one yet. Hopefully today will not be the day that I drop one. So it doesn't need to be super tight, it's just going into plastic here. Then you take your electrical connection, and mine already looks pretty clean. Obviously, if this was dirty at all, you would want to, use some electrical spray to clean that off a little bit. Then you just plug it right back on the top, make sure it clicks, and you're done. Anybody noticed at the end of that last clip, I did drop my Torx bit. Fortunately, it fell right through the car and I was able to just pick it up off the ground. Haha, my luck. So the next thing we're going to be doing is, like I said, the siphon flush out of the brake cylinder, the brake system reservoir here in the engine compartment. This already should be super self-explanatory here. I've got my turkey baster, the fluid reservoir, and I'm basically just siphoning out the old fluid. Try to be careful and not spill any in your engine compartment, or obviously you don't want this to get on the paint job of your vehicle if you can avoid it. Brake fluid is not particularly good for the paint job on your vehicle. So like I said, this is not as good as a full flush, but I believe that it does help to remove water from the brake system. So I'm actually going to come around here. Let's just pause the video again. You don't need to watch me doing all this. And obviously once you have all the old fluid out, pour in new fluid and close the cap, wipe it off, call it a day. For our next step, we're going to be removing the resonator, which is this large plastic piece across the top of the engine. And I see a lot of people on, on the forums. They'll do a resonator. They'll do a delete on this and basically just run a straight pipe from the intake on the throttle body over here, just straight over to here on the airbox. And that's something I'd probably like to do at some point. This thing is kind of ugly and big and gets in the way of other stuff. Theoretically, it increases airflow. It's to be determined. I had a hard time finding the right parts to do that. The hardware stores around me just don't stock the right size pipes or hoses or anything. It's hard finding a kit online for anything approaching a reasonable price. So I just haven't gotten around to it yet. I might do it one of these days. So anyone that's ever removed one of these before, and I haven't done mine in a few years, so bear with me if I do something stupid here, but it's typically held in place. There's a couple hose clamps on either side, And I'm just going to get that nice and loose, and we'll try to wiggle this one off on this side. Let's see, you can also, I think I've removed it from here before as well, so maybe let's try that side too. It'll be easier to get a grip on it there. So let's remove that. Oh yeah. Let's see. There, it's easier to grab it from that side. So it's, like I said, it's a couple hose clamps, and then there's 2 bolts down here on the passenger side. And you're going to need a couple extensions to reach them. They're just going through the sides here and into a couple of clamps. Might not even need to take that out all the way. Let's see. Let's go get the other one loose. There's one. The other one, the screw's kind of stuck in there, but it's fine because it's loose. Let's go ahead and get one of these hose clamps loose on the other side. You might need a couple different size screwdrivers to reach this. I like to use this long one when I can. And it's coming out. I'm going to take this hose out of here in a second as well. So this, there we go, there's my hose. So, let's see if I can hold this in front here. You can kind of see how this thing, it is hollow, but it's got a bunch of baffles and stuff through it. I think it's supposed to make the air quieter. Who knows? GM engineers. You can see there's that other screw that was kind of stuck in there, but they do have these rubber bushings. And that's also obviously something that you would need to take off if you were doing a tune-up on the vehicle, because you can see now with that out of the way, you can see the tops of your coils, your spark plug coils right there. Let's get this piece of hose out of here too. There we go. Would be a great time to do a resonator delete if I could find the right parts. Ha ha ha. So, let's see, actually, let me flip that over one more time. I want to show you that little hose that I'm going to be replacing as well. That's on the bottom here. And you can actually see this is falling. This is just falling off. It's completely cracked around the edge there. So obviously we're not getting a tight seal. We're not getting engine vacuum into the crankcase to help remove vapors and oil another crud from the top of the crankcase, which is basically, my understanding is the point of that. It just pulls air through the top of the cylinder head to remove vapors and kind of remove some crud. All right. With that out of the way, I'm going to wipe off. Actually, you can see where the other end of that hose connects. It's wet with oil there. And we can also now see I think it's called a butterfly valve. It's been a long time since I've worked on carburetors. I guess it might not be the same terminology on air intakes. So one of the things with the Colorado throttle body, on my old cars that I was used to working on, you could manually actuate this valve. There was usually, like a throttle plate on the side where you could turn it to open the butterfly valve. Now what I understand is with this, if I turned the key on, if I had an assistant to help me, I've heard that if you turn the key on but not to run and you press the gas, you can get that valve to open. I don't know, I don't have an assistant. But what I also have heard is that don't press on that manually. And you can see the valve, the intake right in here is, they say don't press on that manually because you can actually damage your throttle body. So I definitely don't want to do that. All I'm going to do is take my throttle body air intake cleaner, and I'm just going to spray that out a little bit. Maybe I'll spray a little on this paper towel and just kind of wipe it out a little bit. And you can see that's not super dirty. It's more dirty on the inside, on the back, from what I've been told. I know you can replace this throttle body, this intake, with this plastic intake. This is so weird to me. I know that's like how all new cars are, but I miss my old cars where you could take off the intake and put on a nice Edelbrock Performance intake and stuff like that. So I'm just kind of spraying some of this in there. Let it run out. I'm just kind of wiping it down around the edges. It's not too bad. I know when I start the engine, some of this is going to get sucked in, and that'll help clean out the inside a little bit, I hope. So let me pause the video. I'm going to wipe this off a little bit more. I also, having that box off also now gives me room to get to the exhaust gas solenoid, or VVT solenoid. Like I said before, let's kind of try to pan the camera down a little bit. You can see where that's located. Let me see if I can zoom in. It is right just above and to the right of the power steering pump. So I'll go ahead and put a screwdriver on it. So this is where that VVT solenoid is, and it's got one electrical connector, one 10mm screw right down here on the side holding it to the inside of your block. And like I said before, that's a common problem with our vehicles, is that the screens and internal components of this will come apart. And again, you can see the replacement. It's actually a lot longer than I was expecting it to be. So I must go quite a ways into the block. I'm keeping it in this yellow bag here. It's got oil in there. I don't want to just take it out and lay it anywhere. Keep it in there, keep it clean until I'm ready to install it. So I'll go ahead and pause the video for a minute. I'm going to clean out my intake a little bit more. I'm going to start removing that solenoid that I just showed you, and I'll pick up the video. I'll hit record again if anything else interesting comes up. It's always a good time anytime you're looking in here. Just get a visual inspection of everything. Make sure your electrical connectors are all nice and tight. Heater core back here, nothing's leaking or cracked, anything like that. Inspect any sort of vacuum hoses. There's not a whole lot on a newer engine. I love my old cars from like the mid 70s with all the vacuum hoses everywhere. Late 70s, that was a mess. There's one up here, a vacuum hose on the throttle body. But just give it a good visual inspection while you're in here, and make sure your caps are tight, your belt's in good condition. You can see there's an oxygen sensor down there. The first one. So I'm going to pause the video again. I'll pick it up again if anything else interesting comes up here. I wanted to just turn the video on one more time to talk about this VVT solenoid. Here's my old one. It is now out of the vehicle, and not sure how well the camera will focus on this, but you can see that all of the screens in this portion are surprisingly all still intact. For 212,000 miles, I probably will wrap this back up in oil and save it in my toolbox as a spare. It was pretty confusing to get it out, and it's a good thing I had the camera paused because I was standing here cursing about it for a minute. This wiring clip is kind of hard to reach, and let me get this out of the way again here, and I'll point to what I mean. This connector that was connected to the top of it, it's not really obvious, you know, at least not to me from looking at it, how it needed to be disconnected. So you actually need to reach underneath it, or reach inside of it from sort of this angle and pry this little, pull this tab that way, and then at that point you'll be able to pull it off the back. It might have been easier if I could have gotten this big wiring harness out of the way, but this connector was frustrating me here, and I didn't want to damage anything down here, you know, breaking that out of there and then have to replace it with zip ties or something. So once that was out, it was still pretty challenging to pull the old unit out. Yeah, probably just caked on there with, you know, so many years, you know, since it had been removed. But the hole, you know, obviously is right here, and I just sort of had to gently, you know, pry it a little bit from back here, and eventually it worked its way loose, and I was able to pull it out straight through here. Basically, it was right through here above the power steering pump was where I found I had enough room to remove the old one. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll pause the video again here. Let me grab my new one. I'm trying to keep it wrapped in oil as long as I could. It's all nice and shiny. And like I said, you can see if the camera will focus on this. You can see this has got those sort of those wire, almost like a spring piece, holding the screens in place. So again, installation is reverse of removal. Just go ahead, get that in there, wiggle it around a little bit, and get it all the way in. And like I said, there's that one bolt that holds it in. Do not put a lot of, don't wrench it down on there. It's a very thin bolt, and you don't want that to snap off in the side of your motor. So, you know, once you would get that bolt in, reconnect your electrical connector, make sure it's clean, reconnect it, and then I'm going to proceed with putting the rest of the resonator and the hoses and my new crankcase ventilation hose back on there, and that should pretty much cover it for this video. I'll pause it for now and we'll pick it back up again if anything else interesting comes up. Alright, so that's pretty much it. You can see everything is all put back together now. The intake is back on, the hoses, I got everything tightened back down. Kind of give you a little bit better view of what the side looks like over here. You can see those bolts that hold this down there and there. There's my new, I can get the camera to focus on it, my new solenoid down there. So our last thing that we always need to do is just fire up the engine, make sure everything still runs. We're going to look underneath, check for leaks. There shouldn't be anywhere that it would leak from other than maybe around that solenoid that we replaced. Probably has got some of that cleaner in the throttle body still. I think it was running a little of that cleaner through the throttle body for a minute there, but see, everything is good now, and don't see any leaks. I'll double check that once I shut the video up. I'll also add that new crankcase hose was very tight. Had to use a large pair of pliers to help me slip it on there, but it's on there now. Hopefully that'll help keep the crankcase clean, and I really hope this video was helpful for you. If it was, please go ahead and give me a thumbs up, a like, and subscribe to my channel. It really helps me out a lot. I do a lot of different repair videos on you know, cars, trucks, computers, you know, pretty much anything. I figure if it's, you know, just trying to be helpful out there. Stay safe, everyone, and have a great day.